Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Political Geekery, a podcast about politics, science and the intersection of the two. Today is the 11th of March 2015. I'm Sean.
I'm Mark.
So there's an election coming up and the most likely outcome is going to be a coalition led by one of the two major parties, Labour or Conservative. Both parties will have you believe that the choice between them is the most fundamental question in politics today, with Prime Minister and ham-faced dickhead David Cameron calling this year's election the most important in a generation. Maybe slightly overstating things a little bit, Dave. Which begs the question, really, how different are Labour and Tory? So let's start with something fairly bread and butter, affects a lot of people. The minimum wage. Now, Labour have said that they will raise the minimum wage from its current level of £6.50 an hour to £8 an hour by 2020. That sounds very impressive. You know, we're going to raise the minimum wage by £1.50. If you ignore the fact that the current living wage outside of London is £7.85 an hour, so just barely above that and well below the current London living wage of £9.15 per hour. So what Labour have promised is that within the next 5 years, people on low income will be just barely scraping by if no inflation happens whatsoever. And this fails to take into account the fact that inflation will happen. In 5 years' time, £8 will almost certainly not be worth the same as it is now. I'm sure most people listening to this will be aware that the value of money changes over time. In 1990, a Mars bar would cost you 25p, whereas today you might expect to pay around 60p. So it's an increase of 140% over the last 25 years. Obviously, we don't know what the rate of inflation will be in the future for certain. We can estimate it by deciding on what we call an annual discount rate. Overall inflation over the last 5 years has been about 19%, which, if you take that over 5 years, if it was the same rate per year, is about 3.5% per year. If we take that as our discount rate, we find that in 5 years' time we might expect £8 to be worth about £6.73 of today's money. So that's an increase of 23p per hour, or if you were to take that over a 40-hour working week, and a gross increase of £9.27, which, if you're on minimum wage, an extra tenner a week is nothing to sniff at.
It's a very small amount.
I mean, it's small, but you could see that maybe making a difference if somebody was really scraping by, as a lot of people are. And the thing is, though, what about the current Tory policy? It's not entirely clear, because as far as I know, the Conservatives haven't released their manifesto just yet. But George Osborne recently said that the minimum wage should be increased to £7 per hour this year, as a one-off increase at the end of 2015. After that, the minimum wage would continue to sort of rise in line with inflation, so that the value wouldn't actually change over time after that initial increase. So we discount that extra 50p an hour over a year, as we've done over 5 years for the Labour proposal. We find that the Tories are offering an increase which would be worth £6.76 per hour in today's money. So as it stands, the closest thing we have to a stated Tory policy on the minimum wage would leave you 3p per hour better off, or £1.23 per 40-hour working week, than the Labour policy does. So that's the value of a Greggs steak pasty that somebody else has already had a little nibble on. Obviously, this isn't an argument for voting Tory, because there is literally no such thing. I mean, still are both offering something well below the living wage, and I think, you know, my aspirations, and most people's aspirations, are slightly greater than the acquisition of used baked goods. So we could see it as kind of a case study in how fundamentally similar the two biggest political parties in the UK are when you look at the actual effects of their policies on ordinary working class people.
I must admit, I can't think of a good reason to vote for any one of them. I was slightly leaning towards the Greens, but there's a few policies I just don't like. They're all clutching at straws.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Greens, I'd say, I mean, the first thing is that even if you're a Green supporter, nobody's going to say that the Greens are a serious contender
No.
in the general election. I mean, Green policy statements are essentially sort of, fantasy statements about, if I ruled the world.
They do seem to be more of a thorn on the side of the other two major parties, or three if you prefer.
I mean, I think, smaller parties can pretty much get away with saying things that they're never going to have to implement.
They can, wish you, promise you anything. This is probably why UKIP do so well.
Yeah, well, UKIP, I think, do well, partly because a lot of people kind of alienated and having a very difficult time. There's not a lot of a sort of political alternative to turn to. I mean, UKIP arms an alternative to the current one. I mean, we're talking about a party whose leader and deputy leader are both on record as opposing the NHS.
Totally Thatcherites.
Yeah, well, that's it. They are a Thatcherite party. They left the Conservative Party in the early 90s because the Conservative Party of the early 90s wasn't right wing enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure whether people are just sort of not aware of this fact that the UKIP are really not on your side if you're a minimum wage worker. And I think UKIP in 2011, I believe it was, released a policy document on their website, now mysteriously disappeared from the internet, where they referred to people claiming benefits as a parasitic underclass.
Funny, that's what I think of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you look at sort of the way Nigel Farage laughed. There is kind of a lamprey thing going on, isn't there? It kind of looks like you should be drawing blood from somebody's arm. But then Labour and Conservative seem to be sort of competing at the moment in the run-up to the election over who will be the most arbitrarily cruel to people claiming benefits.
Yeah. Well, of course, benefits are the thing that bring the country to the knees, and that's not the thing.
Oh,
they refuse to mention.
Well, I mean the bankers themselves are scum, but ultimately just sort of part of a wider system.
Yeah.
You look at these policies. I mean, Labour have said that they're going to limit job seekers' allowance to 2 years. So if you lose your job during difficult economic times, it's happened to a lot of people recently. 2 years, and then you're in penury. You can't find a job in the meantime. I mean, I know a lot of people claim job seekers for longer than that through no fault of their own. They're talking about mandatory work placements. I mean, they're fine to sort of say, oh, workfare, isn't it terrible, when it's Tory workfare. They don't mention that they introduced a lot of workfare policies under the New Deal, it was called at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the Conservatives basically just sort of saying, oh, yeah, well, we'll be even stricter on workfare. I mean, the sort of the way that young people are being talked about by both parties, Labour want to reduce the limit to 1 year if you're under 25 for job seekers allowance. Conservatives want to do away with job seekers allowance altogether for 18 to 21-year-olds. 30 hours a week.
Because if you're younger, you don't need money.
Yeah.
You can live on air and stuff.
Well, no, because you see, mummy and daddy will take care of you if you're a young'un. That's the fucking world that the Conservatives live in. Yeah, I mean, you see this in the past when they've talked about taking housing benefit away from young people, and they say these things like, oh, well, can't they just live with their parents till they're 25? Not everybody has that fucking luxury. Not everybody is in a situation where they can live with their parents. Not everybody under the age of 25 has living parents.
I mean, I've worked in a youth hostel in the past, and as you say, it's not an option for some people. Can't just leave them to hang like that.
No, yeah, it's that kind of, it's kind of cliche to say, but it's always this kind of Dickensian sort of thing, this Ebenezer Scrooge, well, are there no workhouses, kind of, it's the attitude that, I mean, I don't think this is necessarily what David Cameron thinks. He just doesn't give a shit. He just wants to transfer as much money from the working class to, himself and his mates as he possibly can.
They're in it together.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is... I mean, child benefit. Bear in mind, this is money which is supposed to feed children. Labour want to cap the amount which child benefit can be raised at 1% for the first 2 years. So if we use the discount rate we were talking earlier at 3.5% per year, that's a real terms cut over those first 2 years, 4.8% in money for children. Ian Duncan Smith, he's talking about a 2-child limit for child benefit claims because poor people are only allowed so many children, and then it's just taking the piss. The other children they can just I don't know, they can just starve or something as far as these factors are concerned. We've got this document coming out from the DWP about charging for sanctions appeals because too many people are successfully appealing sanctions decisions. So both parties are basically just proposing very similar ways of managing sort of late capitalism. They can't break with this sort of neoliberal consensus, which has pretty much determined economic policy throughout much of the world for the last several decades, because they just seek to manage that existing state of affairs. It's the sort of the nature of the state. It's there to serve the needs of capital.
I mean, that's one thing that bugs me about all political parties. They don't seem to have anything outside of money and financing, and that seems to be the only policy. And I think it's one of the biggest putbacks for me of the open time. I want something a bit more than.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of like managerial thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they're accountants.
Yeah,
that's how I see them. They're nothing more than accountants these days.
They're the kind of scum that you would normally see going into middle management, basically. Yeah, people who go to university, do politics, philosophy, and economics. I think it is PPE. And go there and get themselves their SAB officer position at the student union, and then come straight out of that, work as an intern for whichever party suits their fancy, and end up securing themselves a nice little safe seat when whoever was occupying it previously retires. It's a career to these people. I mean, even if they could make any really serious changes through Parliament, I'm not sure that they even could. I mean, they don't give a fuck in the first place.
I wanted to look your thoughts about the Margaret Thatcher Museum/Library. How do you feel about that one? I've looked around online, and there's a petition by somebody called 38 Degrees saying they don't want public tax money being spent on that. I'm completely behind that. And I've read up online that the way in which David Cameron said it is that he's behind it, but he hasn't actually said taxpayers' money is going on this. Now, again, I think it's kind of a bit more than about money. I don't like the idea of Margaret Thatcher getting a museum when one of the biggest gripe of her personally is the fact that she projected paedophile.
Several from what seems to be coming out lately.
Yeah, and I don't really fancy a propaganda mission trying to drill into it that she was nice after all.
Yeah. Well, it's the same sort of thing. That happy day 2 years ago anniversary coming up. You've got this sudden thing. She was a controversial figure. No shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
she
a
was more
nice
than
way of saying she was a
controversial.
cunt.
Yeah. Fucking destroyed communities. Controversial. It's the kind of word you use when you're not affected by this shit at all. Funnily enough, was all the people who were being put on the news at the time. And it's all about this thing of sort of trying to set down a particular narrative. What she did was necessary. That she was a great leader. But even if you fundamentally disagree with everything that she ever said and did, and think she was basically evil, that you have to respect her. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I quite often think good things happen when the Conservatives in, despite them. Not because of them, The economy's getting better, not because of the stuff they did, but just because of the effects around the planet seem to be helping.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but think...
Call me biased.
I can't help but think that some of that is kind of almost regression to the mean, if you know what I mean. It's that thing of, this sort of crash in the economy, and governments all around the world took all kinds of measures, and with the exception of, like, the ones that were really fucked, I mean, your Greece, your Spain, your Ireland, where things really went tits up. I don't think you could find much more different approaches or austerity than, say, the UK, Germany, and both have seen a recovery. I mean, Germany was barely affected at all, from what I understand. I should probably read up on more before I make any really firm claims. So it's kind of like things weren't going to stay in the shit forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. I took this magic sugar pill and my headache was at its worst, and then my headache got better. Well, of course it did.
Yeah,
that was when it was at its worst.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I can't help but think that there's, I'll say that's the entire explanation, but I think there's an element of that there.
Do you know how much they're actually predicted to spend on the museum/library? I don't quite understand how it's going to be a library, but this is what I read. About 15 million.
Fuck off.
Is the Now, I don't know how they're going to raise that without taxpayers' money myself.
A lot of rich friends, a lot of wealthy ideologues who'd like you to believe that Thatcher was the best thing since fried toast. I'm sure they
Well,
could raise it.
yeah. Also, I think being as she was so pro-capitalism, nothing should actually pay for itself. You know, let's see her great idea work and see how popular she really is.
Well, I think it probably would raise the money because I mean this is how capitalism works. Do you know what I mean? If the ruling class wants something enough, then they'll make it happen. Whether that's a Margaret Thatcher museum or massive fucking cuts to child benefit or a ridiculous fucking state funeral. Where
Which apparently she didn't want.
Yeah. Well, I mean that almost makes me feel like it was a good thing.
But it kind of makes me sick, and that again, it was propaganda to sort of say, hey, she wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, did you see the footage from that mining village? Like a procession, like a big Thatcher effigy made out of paper mache, which they like set in fire in the middle of the village. It was like almost as good as the Wicker Man, only there wasn't a cop inside it.
Did you ever see the Iron Lady? I've got to confess I really haven't, but I kind of got the impression that was, again, another little propaganda stunt to sort of say, she did good things. She was controversial, but she did the right thing in the end.
Yeah.
Crap.
I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't necessarily want to comment on it without knowing.
No, I'm in an awkward situation. I don't want to slag it off, but I really don't want to watch it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I haven't looked this up, but I'm not sure I can sort of ask many people I know about it because I suspect that it's not a film that will have done well in Liverpool.
No. It would be interesting to see how many theatres it actually opened in. Yeah. Maybe one.
Yeah, I maybe need to check that out. I'm willing to bet certain areas of the country, like Liverpool, North Wales,
just the whole north side of the country.
Just for some reason, will not have seen big ticket sales for the Iron Lady.
Unless the huge people that just think it's Iron Man.
This new Marvel film is shit.
When's he gonna come? Ever heard of a scientist called Jocelyn Burnell?
It rings a bell. I can't say I'm assuming right now.
She was famous for discovering pulsars back in 1967. The reason why I wanted to bring her up is she's not a household name, and I really think that she should have been. She's the one that kind of spotted quasars within the data, which other scientists have said that only like 1 in 100 could have possibly have seen. And the two people, she was a research student at the Cavendish laboratory, and her two people that were doing her PhD both received a Nobel Prize for it. Now, it was actually her discovery, and she was completely missed out. And I think that's part of the problem in trying to get more women into science, is that huge names like that are just whitewashed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rosalind Franklin is another classic example. Like, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that Watson and Crick, maybe would have eventually gotten the structure of DNA, but it's certainly not as quickly as they did, and it was fundamental to that discovery.
I can't remember which one is still alive today, but he still won't give her any credit for that. And it's just like, fuck off. And this is a guy that's boasting about being the most famous scientist up there with Stephen Hawking, and it's just like, yeah, but I don't respect you. Sort of.
Well, I mean, there's sort of, making a major discovery and there's, being a half-decent human being.
Yeah. I mean, the discovery of pulsars was like the next step in sort of figuring out what black holes were all about. So the fact that it's so important that apparently Stephen Hawking went up to the team that found it, and was just like, so you're convinced about black holes now, because it was literally only a step away from being a black hole, neutron star that's spinning. It's essentially a pulsar. I think there's just a Nobel Prize committee could do with like just looking back over who they have missed out and give them some sort of prize. Now, I know full well that the Nobel Prize committees are quite particular about things, like they won't give a Nobel Prize to somebody that's died, even if it was in the same year and they were certainly considered. If they died that same year, they will not get it. They're strict about certain things, but even if they just gave out a token gesture towards people, and certainly women, then I think it would go a long way to help get more women into the scientific field.
I mean, obviously, the fact that a lot of women who made some really important discoveries, not sort of getting that recognition. I think that's probably an element of it, because there is this sort of thing that we have in popular culture of boys are systemizers. They're into science and they're into maths, and I mean, I think it's a real sort of effect, and I think that that sort of these women not being recognised probably plays into that quite a bit. I mean, I think that the fact that possibly STEM subjects in particular, but academia in general as well, really can be kind of an old boys club. Really has a lot to do with it. That universities, particularly in the STEM subjects, the sort of senior positions are dominated by sort of white middle class men.
I mean, they're trying to change that balance a little bit now. I mean, they're trying to make a conscious effort into trying to change it a little. But as I say, it would really help if they just like honoured stuff like Rosalind Franklin and Jocelyn Bell, just to make it more of a household name, just so people can look at these people and go, wow, which I think they deserve.
Save the vultures. Probably not the most inspiring political slogan that you'll hear today or ever, but it is something we should really be concerned about. So diclofenac is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug which is used to treat both humans and animals. The drug is given to farm animals in a lot of areas in the world, but it's highly toxic to birds of prey, including vultures and eagles. Carnivorous birds who eat the corpses of farm animals can die as a result of getting diclofenac into their system. Now, actually, veterinary use of diclofenac has been heavily restricted on the Indian subcontinent for around a decade after its use led to a near catastrophic collapse in the population of a number of species of birds of prey. The vulture population of India declined from 40 million to 60,000 over the course of a few years. I mean, a decline of 3 orders of magnitude in the population of species in less than the lifespan of a smartphone is somewhat alarming in itself. But there's also a paper titled Removing the Threat of Diclofenac to Critically Endangered Asian Vultures in the January 2006 edition of PLOS Biology, which notes that the decline in the vulture population in India also caused a surge in the population of feral dogs as competition for carcasses decreased, which led to an increased risk of rabies for humans living nearby. There was also concerns that you could see a huge increase in the population of rats, which puts people in danger of all kinds of diseases, including bubonic plague.
What were the effects in the Western world? Was this ever somewhat effect outside of like India?
Yeah, well, restrictions exist on the use of diclofenac in Europe, but loopholes of regulation allow its use in Spain and Italy. Happens to be where the largest share of Europe's vultures live, despite the risks of its use being known for around a decade now. And alternative non-steroidal anti-inflammatories for animals exist which are safe for birds of prey, something that was laid out in that paper in 2006.
Is it a cost issue that's slowed it down? Or?
I mean, I would assume so. I mean, I don't know who holds the patents on the drugs, but I mean, you could have an issue there that, say, one producer is particularly keen to promote diclofenac for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not too sure on that, so don't take my word for it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, vultures have been found dead in Spain, which appears to have died from diclofenac poisoning. So I mean, this is a major issue that the EU still hasn't closed this loophole. I mean, it's not the only case of sort of pharmaceuticals used in veterinary medicine having a really serious ecological impact. Antibiotics used heavily in farming around the world. I mean, both as a growth promoter to increase the amount of meat on animals and as a prophylactic, as a disease prevention measure, basically because...
So it's sort of two birds, one stone. So
yeah.
Idea.
Yeah. And, I mean, of course, probably wouldn't see quite so many infections amongst farm animals if they weren't kept in such shitty conditions.
Is it crap conditions, or is it just claustrophobic, really close conditions which causes it?
Well, I mean, I think yeah, I think that, I mean, you see it in farming in general, but I mean, I think, when you have things like battery chickens, where they're in extremely close proximity to each other, one of them gets a particularly virulent infection, and that's just going to spread like wildfire. They've got nowhere to go. They are on top of each other. Now, that overuse of antibiotics promotes antibiotic resistance in bacteria.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fairly well-known phenomenon. Selective pressure means that, obviously, bacteria that are least resistant to antibiotics die, and the ones that are most resistant live and spread their genes, and spread them to other species of bacteria as well, as bacteria have a tendency to do that. nasty little buggers who love to share. So I mean, the sort of so-called superbugs like MRSA, these pose a serious threat to human health. The World Health Organization has sort of been making predictions of doom for several years now, as we sort of see resistance, more types of antibiotics spreading all around the world.
It's like second on my all-time fears of what's going wrong with the planet. Global warming comes first for me.
Yeah, I mean, global warming is scary and probably is a bigger threat, and yet at the same time, I don't know, it involves less sort of pus and sores all over my body. I kind of...
just water coming up to your bedroom window.
Yeah. Oh, I live on a hill, it's fine.
I would struggle without electricity, let alone without Wi-Fi. I mean, I'd cry without Wi-Fi. Without electricity, I'd break. Also, hospitals would have a damn hard time keeping anyone well. So
yeah, but then I suppose like you can kind of get like a 2-for-1 deal there, where the sewers flood and you have some antibiotic resistant strain of fucking dysentery. You have to go to a hospital that doesn't have drugs that can treat you, which is ankle deep in water in the fucking reception. We're kind of fucking things up.
That's when you know the planet wants to read.
I mean, the planet basically doesn't give a shit. It's a planet.
No, I'm giving it agency. I
know. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. So in the EU, the use of antibiotics as growth promoters is illegal, but non-therapeutic use as a prophylactic is still allowed. So animals can still receive in huge groups doses of antibiotics that they don't really need in order to avoid contracting diseases that they shouldn't be at risk of.
It's preemptive antibiotics.
Yeah, exactly.
I can understand why the farmer would want to do that, though. It's protecting an awful lot of money in a way. Like I'm not saying I'm fully behind it, but I can see where they're coming from.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting thing. Because we have some sort of good case studies on this. Denmark, funnily enough, has been kind of a leader in the field with this. They were sort of concerned about this in the late 90s and started introducing fairly heavy restrictions on sort of non-therapeutic use of antibiotics in animals. And what they found was that not only did antibiotic resistance die back very quickly in those animals, because we're talking about gut bacteria, there's a lot of competition. So antibiotic resistance no longer provides an advantage. It will sort of die back in the population. So it only takes maybe a few years for this to sort of die back a bit. But once you sort of stop that overuse in animals, I mean, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's in the human population, it becomes a lot more difficult. But what they found was that these restrictions don't seem to have actually affected the sort of the profitability of meat production in Denmark. It seems like that, I mean, Danish bacon, yum, 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 yum.
Are you a fan?
I've been known to indulge
slightly. Slightly.
Yeah, a little bit. But so I mean, we're not even necessarily talking about like measures that really hurt farmers here. And again, a lot of this could probably be improved quite a bit just by improving the conditions of the animals, which basically just stop producing so much fucking meat. We do not need to eat the amounts of meat that we do.
I think I've heard doctors say that if you're going to eat meat, it approximately comes out about once a week with a meal sort of level. But I must admit, I do like meat with a meal.
Yeah. Well,
it's the fact that almost everything on my plate is trying to emulate meat in some way or another. The gravy and everything else, it's a nice flavour.
Sure, I mean, I don't want to moralise the people.
We're not vegetarians.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhat hypocritical in even making this argument because I do eat an awful lot of bacon. I was like, that and chicken and cheap mince.
That's how you buy a share in processed meats.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not, as I say, I'm not sort of like trying to moralise from on high.
No, but it's a fair point to have. I mean, it is supposed to be healthier. It would cause a lot less strain and things if we were to just cut back. Yeah. I mean, there's an idea to try and promote like insect burgers fairly soon, just to match our protein needs in the future.
I'll have one.
I'll be willing to try. I'll have an insect burger.
I eat prawns. You know what I mean?
I think
The insects of the sea.
I think if there's an option between a stem cell burger and an insect burger, I'd go stem cell.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is almost meat, whereas this is insects. Call me fussy.
So, yeah, I mean, as you were saying earlier, I mean, climate change is a major issue. I mean, it's known that methane from livestock is a major contributor
Oh, yeah.
of greenhouse gases. Again, we're engaging in sort of farming and agricultural practices which are, damaging diversity, as we see
It's a
the
huge-
sort of, biodiversity
Yeah.
with diclofenac. We're promoting diseases which could fucking kill us with antibiotics. We're increasing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which is causing climate change, which is a serious threat to just the world as we know it. So, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where we, as a species, we kind of need to sort our shiz out on this one, I think. Is
Pun
what I'm saying.
intended. On a sort of lighter note, I wanted to sort of just mock technology. Have you heard of this smartphone for dogs, which Motorola are trying to promote? Well, they're trying to promote this dog collar, which they're calling a smartphone apparently. It does have the capability so you can talk to your dog at vast ranges, so you can confuse the fuck out of the poor thing while it's trying to take a dump. What's also crazy about this thing is it actually comes with a 720p camera, so you can actually record your dog sniffing the other dog's asses, which I just think is brilliant. And if you're absolutely batshit crazy enough, you can spend about £130 on this and sometime in June this year, and buy your very own to record all those dogs' asses that you've clearly been desperate to watch.
What is the fucking market for this shit?
No, I genuinely don't. There is one kind of upside I can sort of see to it. If you're the kind of person that's good at losing their dog, it comes with a GPS on it, and that's its only saving grace, I think. But is it worth £130? I think you should just look after your dog a little bit better rather than buying stupid tech.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is marketed at people with an overabundance of common sense.
See, I really want Apple to get on the game, because then we can have a product called the iDog. Which, I think I'd buy it then. I'd be in.
So if you could sync it up with your iWatch and just sort of look at your wrist. What time is it? Oh, it's a dog's arse o'clock. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Oh look, my dog's chewing this over.
Can't actually leave work to do anything about it, but
Yeah.
I know it's happening.
Oh wait, no, I can call him and shout at him and confuse the crap out of it.
The poor fucking dog.
Yeah, it's going to be suffering what it thinks is schizophrenia pretty shortly.
Thanks for listening. I've been Sean.
I'm Mark.
And goodbye.